how you going? I'm TheHighwayGuy, and in this video I want to show you how you can create huge blueprints like this in Satisfactory 1.0 vanilla to decorate your world, and also how you can place this specific blueprint into your world. Also, all the blueprints for the pixel arts shown in this video will be in my Google Drive folder and also on the Satisfactory Calculator blueprint repository. Links for that will be in the description. But now, let's get straight into it. Now, Game of Thrones fans will probably already have noticed that this is in fact the crest of House Targaryen. But they also will have noticed that in the original, the crest is red and not purple. That is because I used the same purple as I used for my highway. But of course, for easier color changes, I also made this with swatches. To be exact, swatch 13 for the background and swatch 14 for the dragon body. So if you want to have that original look, you can just edit this, turn it into red, and then it changes automatically. And now what every Satisfactory player will probably have noticed is that this is much bigger than the vanilla MK3 blueprint designer. So how did I do that? Well, I just split the pixel art into 4 parts. The upper left part, the upper right part, the lower left part, and the lower right part. And now I will show you how to place them. There are 2 versions of this pixel art, a normal version that is placed here, and a rounded version that I will use now. What's important when placing this is that the arrow, the white arrow, has to always point away from you, and that you have to place it on foundations. You're gonna see why in a minute. And now, if I place it down, you're gonna notice that I have a massive freeze, but a way to shorten that freeze is to spam escape and move your mouse violently so that you look away, then wait a bit so it can build up in peace, and then you can look at it again and everything is fluid again. And here you can also already see the rounded edge. And now you just repeat that for the lower right part. Now it can already get really laggy when placing, so it can be a bit tricky to align it. Yeah, and also another thing is I would recommend always using default mode. And then spam left click until you hear the placement sound, and then do the same thing again, spam escape and try to look away. And then it builds up. And now for the upper part, you grab yourself a 4 meter foundation and soup it up 11 times, and then place another 1 meter foundation on top. And now you can take the upper left part, and now it will get really laggy. So you have to try and get it roughly into a nice position, then press H and try to nudge it into place, and then orientate yourself on this edge here, and then spam left click until you hear the sound and spam escape and try to look away. Wait a bit so it can build up. And now you just repeat that on this side. So the upper right part. And yeah, that is really hard because now it gets so laggy that sometimes the inputs don't get recognized. So you have to press it, well, until it works. But it can happen that you just don't get any response. So, and then spam left click until you hear the sound, spam escape and try to look away. And another problem is in multiplayer, it gets even laggier, but yeah, it should still work without crashing. At least for me it worked. But yeah, it doesn't help with the lagginess if you do it in multiplayer. But yeah, that's how you place this pixel art. And now here we have a comparison between the rounded and the normal version of the pixel art. And as you can see, once it's placed, it isn't laggy anymore. It can only get a bit laggy when these blueprints get loaded up for the first time after joining the world. But yeah, that should be over after a few seconds. But now, how can you actually create your own blueprints for pixel arts? Well, first of all, you're gonna need a canvas to paint on. That I will also upload to my Google Drive folder and on the blueprint repository, because I've already created a 49 by 49 canvas. It's in beams, but one beam is also 1 meter, so it's 49 by 49 meters. And that you can place next to each other and also on top of each other. So if your pixel art is bigger than 49 by 49, you have to use two and next to each other or on top of each other. And if it's smaller, you can just delete the excess beams. But yeah, why did I use beams? Well, they are square, and also in comparison to science, they don't crash the game when placed in mass. So for example, if I would use science in this mass and I would attempt to place this blueprint, the game would just crash. And this isn't because my PC is too bad, but because the game just isn't optimized for it. So yeah, that's why I used beams. But now that you know the measurements for this canvas, you can go look for a pixel art that you want to recreate in Satisfactory. So let's hop right to a browser. Now you can just search for whatever you would like to have as a pixel art. In my case, the Targaryen crest as a pixel art. And then I just went to pictures and looked for something I liked. This one here. I went to the website in search of the dimensions so that I know how big it is, because I didn't want to count them manually. But there are no dimensions, but I also saw this here, which is exactly the same. There are also no dimensions, but there is a website, so I went to that website. And here, luckily, I found the dimensions. But I also noticed that there is much black waste space. So I just reduced these pixels until I only have one black pixel at the edge of each side, and then got down to 90 by 88 pixels. But what would I do if I didn't have this dimension? Well, if worst comes to worst, you can always just start counting by hand. Just open this up in Paint or something, I don't know, and then you can check out every pixel that you've already counted in both dimensions, and then you know how big it is. But another thing you could do is use a tool called ShareX, which I'm gonna talk about later, and just measure the size of one pixel and then the size of the whole thing, and then, you know, divide it, and then you know how many pixels there are. But for example here, because it is, I think, for sewing or something like that, every pixel doesn't have the exact same size, so there are cases where that also won't work. But what if I told you that there is another way? A way to create a pixel art out of every picture. How you can do that is what I want to show you right now, and also how you can implement that into Satisfactory then later. So first of all, we gotta pick a picture. I thought about maybe using the Ficsit logo. So maybe this, or oh no, let's use these letters. And then we're just gonna take snipping tool and cut it out. And try to get as little background as possible, so that it stays as small as possible, so that you have less work later. And then you just save that as a no Ficsit, because you will have to upload it later. And what we want to do now is search for PixelIt, as it is the free tool we're gonna use to create a pixel art out of a picture. I'm gonna put that link into the description. But yeah, here we just upload the picture we just created, and then crank up the block size so it looks more realistic, like that. And then we can just download the image as a pixel art. And now when we open up the pixel art, you're gonna notice that we have no way of actually telling how wide and how tall this is, because there are also no borders between the pixels, so we can't just count them manually. And that is where ShareX comes into play. I'm gonna put a link to the download page of that into the description, and if you need help downloading it, just search for it on YouTube. There are hundreds of tutorials for that out there. Well, originally this is a tool for screenshots, but it has a bunch of other handy tools, like for example the ruler, where we can measure out how wide, for example, this here is. So we're gonna just click on the edge, and then you have to drag out an area and come over here, and we will see we have a width of 20 pixels. And then we also have to measure how big one pixel is, so we're gonna search for an isolated pixel, for example here, and you can already see it in the preview, it's 4 pixels. So this here is 5 pixels, because 4 times 5 is 20. And then we can just open it up, for example, I don't know, in Paint or something like that, and then make that bigger, and then we can write down some notes here, so we know this is 5 pixels. And then we can just keep measuring and keep adding measurements here until we have enough, and then hop over into Satisfactory and start pixeling. But before that, I want to show you a quick way how to actually get these colors into Satisfactory. For that, we're gonna also use ShareX, go over to Tools and use the ScreenColor picker. With that, we're gonna hover over the color we want to pick, for example this orange, and then just press left click, and you're gonna see copy to clipboard. And then we can just paste it in Satisfactory. Now that I've noted down all measurements and we're back in Satisfactory, I'm gonna start by deleting the excess beams from the canvas until I get a height of 30. I'm gonna mark myself that. So here we're at 31, so that one I'm gonna delete. And now here we should have 30, as you can see. So I can delete the rest. And for the width, we're just gonna start from the left and work over to the right, so that just comes naturally. Right, and now that we have that, we can start painting. I'm gonna start with white for the letters. Now that we've run out of space, we will continue on the next canvas. And it looks like we're missing just a tiny piece on the right, so unfortunately we have to start with another canvas. And now we can finally place down the blueprint. So we will start with the left part. Again, make sure that the arrow points away from you and place it on foundations if possible. And then spam escape and try to look away, but the lag isn't as bad because it isn't as big. And we will continue with the middle part. And yeah, if you're wondering how long that took, for me it was about, with the measurement, it was about 45 minutes. So yeah, if you have a cool idea and a spot you need to decorate in your factory, then I guess creating a pixel art is really worth it, at least in my opinion. Because it doesn't take as long as one might think in the beginning. And then we will finish with right. That's rather small, but yeah, so it also shouldn't lag as bad as these. Yeah. And for this pixel art, for example, that was a bit more complicated. It took me about, I think, yeah, maybe 4 hours. But the result is really great, so I think that was also worth it. But yeah, that is how you create your own pixel art in Satisfactory. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to support me, you can do so by liking the video or subscribing to the channel, or you could also buy me a coffee via the link in the description. And well, now see you next time.
Ja, wart kurz. Alter, bist jetzt YouTuber. Vergiss nicht, Clickbait zu machen.
Also hast eigentlich recht. Ja gut, mach mal.
Super Leiwand, genau das habe ich gemeint.